Welcome to Being Curious podcast show with Counselling Reflections, a podcast where we dive deep into the human experience, uncovering stories of resilience and triumph. We are proudly supported by Moskin, a UK-based skincare line infused with sea moss.
My name is Cornetta Williams-Walker. I am the founder and CEO of Counselling Reflections. I'm a psychotherapist and clinical supervisor, and also deliver groups and work with individuals around trauma, whether it's sex addiction, whether it's trauma with a big T or small t, and also support people who are just struggling generally in life. Why am I here? I do a podcast called Being Curious with Counselling Reflections. I have a team to help me because I couldn't do it all on my own. And through my course as a therapist, I've increasingly been curious about people's journey, but just to have it in a conversation. This is not about fixing anyone. This is just about people having a chat with me for 45 minutes to an hour about their lives, their philosophy and the way that they view things. But I'm aware that I haven't told my story, although I'm really happy to listen to other people's story. So I was born in the UK from Caribbean parents, and I grew up in care of the local authority. So that's a children's home or an orphanage. And I think I went there when I was about 9. My mum had severe mental health. And as a result, my brother and I went into care. And I would love to say it was a fairy tale story being in care, but often these institutions are wonderful in terms of rescuing children from difficulty, but very difficult when you're not with your family, you don't grow up with your family. So I kind of grew up in a white middle class area, and I think that was quite difficult because I was quite shy, extremely creative, but very shy. I don't think I actually thought that I wanted to be a therapist. I was really distant by the idea because of the trauma that I went through, witnessing my mum's own mental health. And I kind of really thought that I would go down the routes of art and design and helping people that way, as opposed to kind of looking at the mental health side of things. So that was initially my journey, I think, into supporting and doing community-based things. So why being curious? I think thinking about my life and my work, a lot of my work has been helping families who've been struggling. So I've worked in a prison, I've worked in probation, I've worked with learning difficulties, disabilities, and just a wide range of areas. I was a musician and artist, did installations, I wrote. So I think I always wanted to just have a creative space to speak about the difficulties in life. So when I was thinking about being curious, I really was just hoping to have conversations, because when you're with clients or with families, your focus is on helping people discover themselves, their talents, and to kind of reduce maladaptive thinking. And I think for a very long time, I've been interested in positive psychology, which looks at strength-based models. It says actually you are the resource, that you have talent, you have the ability to make things better for your lives. And so these conversations came out of being curious about other people's lives. So I'm just thinking, because when I was thinking about this podcast, my grandma, I just asked lots of questions. Why? Why did you do things? I remember one conversation of why it was like, I wanted to know what contraception my grandmother used when she was young. So if you can imagine, a Caribbean family where the grandmother is the most scariest thing going, For some reason, as a child, I just needed to understand why things were the way that they were. And so I think the podcast is kind of stems from that understanding, or that just wanting to understand why we do the things that we do. So that was kind of who I was. That comes to mind, which I might as well share. So when I was young as well, I was living with my grandmother for a period of time after the children's home had closed down. And my auntie, who's the same age as me, cut up my pages in my book because I read too much. So I think as well as being bookish and kind of wanting those questions, I wouldn't say that I was particularly smart because I was dyslexic. So the math doesn't go away. Got better, but it doesn't necessarily go away. But I think the ability to just think about why we do the things that we do. So I think increasingly over the years, and I'm a child of the 60s, I have noticed that a lot of the conversations have been done by very successful, wonderful people, but actually who looks like me, who sounds like me, who has something to say that is quite extraordinary, but wouldn't get the opportunity because the same faces tend to do the same podcasts. And as much as I think they're wonderful advice, I'm really interested in you and what you have to say and why you're saying it in the way that you're saying it, whether you're professional, whether you're just doing a passion project, whether you're just a creative. I just really want you to kind of have a conversation with me and see where we land. So I've been blessed that people have trusted the process and have been quite vulnerable online. And one of the things that I really don't want to have is people feeling that they can't tell their story, or that actually they should edit their story because they want to feel safe. So there's a balance to be had for me being curious, wanting to know people's business, but also at the same time protecting their right to not say the things that they feel that is quite vulnerable and they're not looked after. So I think our guests have been really, really lovely and inviting to be able to say to us, oh, actually, this is who I am. This is how I think. This is what I want for myself. This is what I might want for other people. So kind of being curious is kind of stem out of those conversations. When I was thinking about being curious, it took me about 5 years. So given the fact that I'm dyslexic and recently self-diagnosed as ADHD, which actually, how did I find out? It was actually witnessing my daughter struggling with certain behaviours that I realised that this is what I do. And having the ability to kind of research, I realised I had ADHD. So it took me 5 years of procrastination and fear of getting it all out there, fear of making mistakes. I think, how did I grow up? I think I had people around me who said, go for it. But I was risk averse. I was living in London and I was just generally scared to do something that was outside of my comfort zone. So studying is inside my comfort zone. Traveling is inside my comfort zone. But putting myself out there through the lens of a podcast, I was really scared to do. And I think it took me a while to kind of take my own medicine and just go and do it. Why do I do it? So I think why I did it initially in anything I do is always the love of my daughter. And she's an adult. But I think when I was a single parent and when I was married, I think I just really wanted to show her, if your mum can do it, you can do it. So that meant that whatever she wanted to do in life, I felt as a mum and as a woman, I needed to kind of show her how to do it. It hasn't always been easy because she had to read my essays and assignments and dissertation at master level when she was 14. So it wasn't necessarily easy for her, but it wasn't necessarily easy for me. I think when I think about why I do the things that I am doing, the emerging theme to self-actualization. How can I be a better person? How can I be a better person from the person I was yesterday? How can the experiences of today help me be a better person for tomorrow? So that is my kind of analogy and why I do the things that I do. I don't always get it right. So I'm an avid searcher of up-to-date, accurate information out there on the internet. So the combination of, is it ethical? Has it been researched? What is the validity of the stuff that we're talking about? So a lot of the supplementary information that I send out is well researched and well thought about in terms of information sharing. I am supported by a team that's based not here in the UK, but it's based in Africa. And I found that really useful because my aim is to be global in its reach. And so as much as I wanted a British lens, and I think I'm blessed and we have a unique way of looking at the world, it was really important to acknowledge my ancestry. It was really important to know that there are other voices. And especially as my training has been very Eurocentric over the years and has a great richness that comes from a very Western construct, it was really important to talk to people from around the world. So that's another driver for me in terms of when we're having these conversations. I've spoken to people that are based in America, they're based in Nigeria, that's based in Europe, based in the UK. And you know what? Increasingly, I just think there's something beautiful about the humanness or the human qualities that everyone has when talking and when I'm listening. Why is it important? Because currently the algorithms that are based in Google and other platforms are slightly biased. They were originally designed by men in a particular era or a particular part of the world. And unless we do more work to balance that conversation out, we end up having the same types of conversations. Sometimes that's really good. I think sometimes we'll always have to repeat ourselves to learn something new about ourselves. And so I am up for that. But I'm really, really interested in other people's ideas, the impact that their society and cultural experience and family of origin has on them. So my family of origin, I was born in the UK from Caribbean parents, and I wasn't brought up traditionally. And so on one hand, I embraced the Caribbean part of me. On the other hand, people would say, well, Cornetta, you don't sound like you've got a Caribbean culture and you sound like a coconut sometimes. And I think as a young woman, that might have actually hurt my feelings. As an older woman, I just think actually I embrace all parts of me. All parts are welcome. And that comes from the kind of ideas of internal family system that actually we come from a rich source of information and we have different parts of us that show up. And so for me, in terms of practice, having these conversations, I really feel that I'm able to attune myself in a way that I probably didn't had I not had the conversations as a therapist, as a youth worker, as a designer, as a singer. I think I've had so many conversations, and I really hope that you can find something from not only my voice, but your own internal voice. Being curious with Counselling Reflections really is a homage to my mum. So the reason why I came into practice and did mental health and looked at being a therapist or a counsellor was because my mum had severe mental health, and it really did impact the way I showed up in many parts. I suppose, thinking about my younger years, I felt really ashamed by her. She had schizophrenia, and she used to talk to herself on the bus. I remember a time I was sitting next to her and she was speaking to herself, and I would pretend that she was speaking to me. And I had lots of traumatic experiences. My mum's mental health meant that she was frozen in time, and so she had a very young, childlike voice. And I think when you're a child, you just want your parent to be a parent and be there for you. But actually, when you have a parent who's not only a child and you can hear that she's a child, actually you could learn to grow up quite quickly. And I always remembered, why is it that I haven't suffered so badly with my own mental health? And partly I think it was because I was in denial. So for a long time, I had the ability to dissociate. And dissociating is kind of being able to park your personality and allow other parts to kind of get on with life. But then I can then say that being a woman who's really overweight, that I did suffer from my mental health. I just ate my mental health. And that's how I dealt with some difficult kind of conversations and experiences. But I think also it's about holding on to the good. And that's a Rick Hansen kind of word. And he's a psychologist that's based in America. And if you have an opportunity to listen to his podcast, they're really amazing in terms of just the quality of the information. But I think holding on to the good, looking at things in a particular way, just being helpful in me navigating what my mental health should be like and how I should probably look after myself. So not all of us are going to wake up in the morning and say, hey, I am good. No, I do that most of the time. But increasingly, when I've been able to kind of really explore not just my mind, but what my body is saying, I realize that there are some kind of quieter, dampening parts. I'm not as happy as I make out to be. And that awareness has helped me because I privileged certain aspects of my personality and avoided some other parts of my personality, if you can understand. What does that feel like? It feels like, on some ways that when I was growing up, due to the trauma that I experienced, I think I just shut down that the only way to show up in the world was to be happy. When, of course, I also can remember there were periods of times where I struggled to get out of bed. And I think that's when I really know that I'm not kind of happy. That when I'm struggling and I feel a bit flat and dorsal, and that's that kind of dampening side. And that part of me, that doesn't happen that often. It's a bit like sitting in quicksand. When you get in there, in those kind of darker moods, you really can't get out of there. The more you wiggle, or the more you struggle, the more you get in. So really having wonderful training over the years. I really like internal family system, polyvagal ideas. I really like systematic work increasingly. And then, just working with other therapists and listening to their modalities have been really helpful. So I know for some people, CBT has helped. I tend to dip in and out of therapy. So when I have a big problem and it feels insurmountable, I will then get some support. But most of the time, I'm able nowadays to kind of lean into a really good friendship group who really knows my story. Now, my friends tell me how it is. And so that is really useful to actually have feedback, but also know that the feedback is coming from a place of love. And I also have, work colleagues who I really love. And whilst I'm in private practice, I have a peer group that I meet up regularly just to talk about life in terms of work and other people. And that's really good to actually have a feedback loop. I'm also noticing the changes. I'm a woman now that's going on into her 60s. Can you believe it? Don't shut that up too much. And what does that mean? Well, I would like to say that there are parts of me I've grown, I'm mature, and I have got deep wisdom. But actually, not all things kind of shine in a twinkling way. There are parts of me going through the menopause and I'm struggling. I think my mood has shifted. The weight around my middle, I'm not appreciating. I would really love to have more sleep. And I would really probably like to kind of challenge my thinking a bit more, given that I have a tendency to probably get stuck in my ways. So being curious is about kind of also understanding that we're going to have many different conversations. Some are going to have a younger audience appeal and others are going to be an older audience appeal. But I invite us all to be there and have those conversations. It's really interesting. I have learned a lot from younger professionals who are starting, who have a different way of looking at things and want to really kind of motivate me. I really have to thank you also to wonderful people that I talk to that really challenge me and who are older than me. So I think, the opportunity to have a podcast and have all these different conversations, I personally think it's quite exciting as well. At this moment, at this time, it's really about building a community. And so it's trial and error. And I'm not trying to have a perfect production. I really am not very good at those things. I have support in terms of my team around me, and Val and Saint have been really helping me. My partner has been helping me, and family and friends. And so that's kind of really pushed me to do stuff. I want to be uncomfortable. I want to challenge myself. If I'm going to die, when I leave this beautiful planet Earth, I hope I can say to myself that I'm doing the things that I want to do. And I invite you to try and do as much as possible the things that you want to do. It is a challenge. I'm mindful that I don't want to be just chasing dopamine, that I really want to sit with my serotonin and I really want to kind of do things that are difficult for me. So in this case, probably need to learn how to do maths and probably need to learn how to drive. And am I okay with that? Yes, I am. I think what I'm hoping in our conversations is actually strategies. There are some people that just know something that I don't know. And so I think being curious is about having those conversations to find out what is it I don't know and what am I willing to do to kind of make a difference in my life and hopefully yours. I really hope that I can have many conversations with you, but I just wanted an opportunity to introduce myself. I am Cornetta Williams Walker. I have a practice called Counselling Reflections. I am based in the UK. Now, if you really want one-to-one support, please drop a line and let's have a call. Our first sessions are free. If you want to be on Being Curious with Counselling Reflections, also drop us a line, DM. That would help us also to kind of build up a community of voices. I'm determined in this life to change the way that I see the world. I don't want the algorithms to produce things just because it's easy, just because I looked at cats far too long or pimple popping shows. I really want the algorithms to show the beauty of human beings. And I know that actually, it sounds fluffy. I know that the world is not fair. I know that each continent and each country has its issues. And so I'm also interested in those voices as well. I really wonder, and I don't know if it's idealistic, but I really would love and wonder to have a world where we use all our talents. Can you imagine that world if we're able to use all our talents? How elevated our energy would be if we're able to use all our talents and problem solve together. What changes the world would look like? Would we be struggling with things in the way that we're struggling with? At this moment, even though we're so connected by our devices and opportunity to speak to people from right across the world in real time, many of us feel really isolated and lonely. So this is also out to those who are feeling lonely. How can we help you connect with me? How can I connect with you? How can you connect with others? This is not about doing big changes with big resources. This is saying you are the resource. What small things can you do to make a difference in your life and in others? So thank you. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. And I really would enjoy, so much enjoy, you telling me about yours. So if you have some time, please listen to Being Curious with Counselling Reflections. I really, really appreciate the space that you've given me and the platform. Thank you.